quick. I have to.
Hi, and welcome to the Dingers Podcast, episode 78. It's your host, Mitch, and I'm here with currently just Kevin. Jake will be jumping in soon. But yeah, Dingers is proudly part of the ShyCitySports.com podcasting network. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel at the Shy City Sports YouTube channel. So go check us out there where you can get other Dinger content. And do you like talking on Twitter there, Kevin?
Yeah. I enjoy talking. I think I enjoy sending GIFs a little more.
Yeah.
GIF is my preferred method of communication anymore, but it happens.
Well, join our conversation by following us on Twitter at Dinger Cubs. We love interacting with you, our listeners, and Cubs fans. So join the conversation, interact with us, follow us on Twitter at Dinger Cubs. There we got Jake. Jake's back. So, long time no see.
We were a little bit of internet problems,
Yeah, you'll have that. But hey, I need to ask you, Jake. So we went to the game on Saturday, and that was like the first time that we had met. Kevin and Jeff and I had met you in person. Did we live up to your expectations, or what you perceptions you had of us, of actually meeting us in person? Yep, that's exactly who I thought you were. Or do you think I was a lot shorter?
It was great. I can already tell. Well, Jeff always makes the short jokes. I can already tell I'm lagging again too. So if it's bad, just raise your hand and say something. But no, it was great. I'm super glad that you guys made the trek, and yeah, you guys definitely lived up to expectations. I mean, I feel like I've the past year-ish. So it was just great to finally be able to meet in person, and I think we had a blast. Despite them losing 9-1, it didn't feel like a loss because we kept things light, and the people in our section really interacted with us, despite them being mostly Brewers fans.
Yeah, and the vibe in our section was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, even though I do have to razz if he's listening. There was a guy in front of us that there was a foul ball right to him, right to him, and he had a Hader jersey on, but he had long hair. He looked like Josh Hader, and right in the breadbasket, and he dropped it, and the guy in front of him picked up the ball. So just dropping the ball. But we had great conversations with Brewers fans, hanging out with the locals. It was good. It was a good time, even though the play on the field wasn't very good that night, especially the first inning, a lot of errors. But it was a fun night. Fun time to kind of get together. But did you get any sleep there, Kevin, on yesterday? Because we drove the 5 hours up to Milwaukee and then turned around after the game and drove the 5 hours back after the night game. Did you get caught up in sleep there, Kevin?
A little bit. The kids were nice and let me sleep in until 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then the wife drove to the local soccer game, which was about 50 minutes away, and I napped a bit. But I think I was telling these guys just before we hopped on, I feel like I hit a brick wall in the last hour or two and ready to go to sleep. It's pretty tired.
Well, it was good that the Sunday baseball game for the Cubs was a little bit more enjoyable, and they picked up the dub with a 2-0 win where Stroman just shoved and pitched well. Our bullpen has been still rock solid, and a lot of good things to kind of take away, even though we had two really dud of a games before that up in Milwaukee. But we as Cubs fans, we kind of like to razz on Brewers and say that we like to keep the lights on up there. I do need to say something to the Brewers that they're not doing a very good job of keeping the lights on when they're giving out free preferred parking passes. Because we got there pretty early. Kevin, Jeff, and I driving up, we get there pretty early, and we accidentally just get into the preferred parking line, and the lady taking our money, we said, "How much is it?" She's like, $40. We're like, "Okay, do you take cash?" And she's like, "Is there any other way?" We're like, Yeah, the little Dewey Bob that you have in your hand, you can
a little immediate sass from the Brewer employee,
Yeah, you can run your card through there, but here, we'll give you $40 in cash. So I handed Kevin the money. He handed it to her. She rung us up. She gives us the ticket plus our cash back, and Kevin starts driving away. I was like, did you pay for it? And he's like, well, she gave me my money, but I think we have to pay up here. I was like, I don't think so. Nope. We got like front row. It was like us, 100 feet, AmFam Field. Like it was like front row parking for free. Whoops. So there might be a night this season where the Brewers won't be able to keep the lights on. They might have to have a doubleheader the next night, but we're just robbing the Brewers blind.
Yeah. And as Jeff is pointing out in the chat, she did kind of sound and behave a little bit like Kitty Foreman.
She was Kitty Foreman.
She was a nice lady, but she gave us a little grief.
She had some sass. She did not like us asking that. Is there other ways to pay other than cash? But well, let's get into talking a little bit about these games. First two nights, Brewers put it to us. I think they had a total of 7 dingers in the first night. And how many was it the night that we were there? 5? Yelly had another one. Yelich had another one. Roddy Telez had one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a tough watching there, tough being at the stadium and having kind of just bite your lip a little bit and not say anything. But let's get into a little bit of talk about this Cubs team, because there is some things that we need to discuss. Big thing that I want to talk about is Madrigal. Nick Madrigal has been on slump watch now for the last week, and it's only went downhill even more. Struck out 3 times in the game that we were at, and yesterday struck out in his first 2 at bats, I believe. Currently is hitting 210. Slash line's 210, 269, 258 with a WRC plus of 56 through the first 17 games with a strikeout rate of 16.4, which when we were getting him, the whole goal of getting him was like, hey, there's a guy who's not going to strike out. And here he is striking out a ton. I think he said he's never ever in his history of his life struck out 3 times in one game. But here we are. Are we to the point where, I mean, he's coming off of a big injury, a pretty major injury, and you can kind of tell the shortened spring training has really maybe affected him, or he isn't all the way back. He has options. Do we think about optioning him down to AAA? What are your guys' thoughts there, Kevin?
I think it should be on the radar, especially with some of the play that's happening down in AAA. I think the hardest part is going to be the 40-man roster, which, I mean, then we're getting into the logistics of it. But what's best for Madrigal, the player, I think, is to get a little seasoning down there at AAA, get his head back on, like you said, coming in quick from a short spring training, coming in from an injury. He developed some interesting habits, that whole taking like the first strike, like a meatball just down the pipe, first strike, like every at bat, and always being behind in count. Kind of seems like that's something he needs to work through. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, it's tough. I think on the broadcast, when I was watching Friday or Sunday, obviously we weren't watching the broadcast on Saturday, but I think it was Taylor McGregor who said something about, she interviewed Madrigal pregame, and he said that he didn't feel like anything was off mechanically, but that it was a mental thing that he was dealing with, some kind of mental hurdle. And I think it kind of looks that way at the plate too. Like, Kevin, you mentioned him taking fastballs right down the middle. We talked about it on Saturday. I think I mentioned it at the game, that Madrigal needs to start swinging at first pitches because he's getting fastballs for first pitch strikes. It's tough to watch right now, but I want to say, like, the number of minor league games, I saw the stat, I think it's less than 100 that he's played at AAA. So if you have to send him down to get his head right, I think now is the time to do it. or sooner rather than later, I should say. I'm fine with giving him a little bit more leash because I think it's become pretty clear that this team is not really built to compete right now, unfortunately. So if you want to give him a little bit more leeway to figure it out at the major league level, I'm fine with that. I think a lot of other fans might not be, but it doesn't bother me. He's still playing pretty solid defense, better than the reputation, we thought he had defensively. And at the same time too, like he's building that relationship with Nico up the middle, the more they play defensively, and that communication is important as well. And I think if you look at the AAA options, I don't know, we can get into it, but if you look at the AAA options of who you're going to bring up to put in his place, there's nothing really enticing there, to me at least.
Yeah, the problem is, and you brought it up, and Kevin, you kind of hit it on nail on the head there, is right now you have to look at the 40-man roster. So
yeah,
I've brought up that Dixon Machado is currently the starting shortstop down at AA. He kind of shares it with Vargas a little bit. If you remember, he was poised to kind of break out and even maybe come up in 2019 when Javi went down, but then he came down with his own injury, and that's when we had to go and call Nico off the couch because his season was done and bring him up to play. And then you kind of know where it's gone from there, where Nico's got the opportunities and got the shots, where Machado's now coming back and finally getting in a full season. And he's doing well down AAA. He's tearing it up. He's hitting the ball really, really well and playing great defense. I remember the game that we went to on opening night, made a stellar play deep in the hole. Kind of looked a little bit like Nico playing out there with the arm. And so you have him, but he's not on the 40-man roster. And so when you look at the next spot, next person maybe down there, and we still have Simmons coming that's still on the injured list, but he's not ready, is Christopher Morrell.
Right.
That would be the next guy. And I'm saying his season so far, he's been tearing it up, but he's down in AA,
right?
Which last year he finished the season with the Iowa Cubs, but now he's back down in AA because there's so many veteran guys that they have at AAA. He's playing really, really good ball right now. And so I think his slash line right now is 274, 338, and 532 with a WCR plus of 132. And in his 9 games, like playing pretty good ball. And I hear he's playing pretty good defense, and people really liked Christopher Morrell. I just don't think he's quite ready for Major League. Like he struggled last year at AAA. And so really we don't have any option unless we do call Vargas up, but he's not on the 40-man roster.
Right.
So it's tough. I would like to see him, and the Cubs have done this before. The Cubs have done it with Ian Happ. They did it with Schwarber when they were struggling, sent it down, and you see now both them players breaking out. So it did work for their careers. Both of them, it helped them. They might not have liked it at the time, but it helped them. And so is this what Madrigal needs? I don't know. But it's a conversation we need to have.
If it's true that the mental aspect is what's bothering him right now, that makes even more sense to me to send him down, get his confidence back up. But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Christopher Morrell is not ready. His season last year was decent, but you could blame it coming off the COVID season. Obviously, he lost a season there. I think he was at the alternate site. I think he was one of the guys at the alternate site because he's been talked about by a lot of guys. But yeah, I mean, nothing else. And if you have to clear a 40-man, like Machado's having a solid season, but if you have to clear a 40-man spot, who is that? Like, do you send Madrigal down? DFA Hayward.
That's what I was just gonna say. I know a guy out in the outfield that we could DFA.
Right. Well, so I was. That's an interesting way to look at it.
I mean, it'd be a weird move to see on the transaction report. That's for sure.
Right.
Well, and Robinson Cano just got DFA'd, so
yeah, that's what when that news broke out, I went to Mitch and I was like, "So, do you think the Cubs have a little bit of cojones to follow that up? You know, what are we doing here?" Something that might be interesting. I'm just checking out the 40-man roster right now. Is Simmons is on the 10-day IL still. If he moves to the 60-day, that frees up a 40-man spot. that they could pull somebody up, but he'd have to be down for 60 days then. Well, and I don't remember if they can backdate those ones or not as much as they do with the 10-day and stuff. Related, and something we were going to talk about is there another infielder we might be okay with parting ways with based on current play that would open up a 40-man roster spot? Somebody maybe like Jonathan VR.
Yeah. I think it's the VR thing is tough, right? Because so first of all, addressing Simmons, wasn't it mentioned that he had another setback last week?
Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't know if you can backdate 60-day IL stints. I don't think you can once you're on the 10. I think you have to. I think it's from when you get injured playing. I don't think that you can do it with the 10-day.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, I feel like you'd see that manipulated more frequently.
That's true.
I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. I have no idea. But yeah, VR is interesting. So let me find. I had this tweet brought up from earlier. Brad at Ballsquawk, BALLSKWOK, who's a great follow on Twitter.
Great handle right there.
Yeah, I don't know what it means. Should I know what it means? I don't know.
We can assume the best or the worst.
Yeah. So Brad tweeted, somebody has been unplayable on both sides of the ball since the series at Coors. And I didn't even look at it, but I guessed it was VR. And then you look at the names not there, but you look at the positions played and it's clearly VR. So the slash line is 176, 216, 176 with a WRC plus of 15. He's striking out 29.7% of the time. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because the BABIP is 250, which is low. You'd expect an average BABIP is probably just over 300. The exit velocities are kind of middling. I don't know. I mean, it's like the tough thing is VR is not a long-term part of this team, but he fills an important role if and when he's playing well. So if you cut him, somebody else is going to pick him up right away. Like I wouldn't be worried about that. Someone else will pick him up right away.
At least the Orioles, if not somebody else.
Yeah. But the Brewers would pick him up and he'd be a stud. Or the Cardinals would. Something like that would happen. But it just is. It's tough because just to make a 40-man spot for Dixon Machado, who's also 30 years old, who's I think they're the same age. So I think a lot is going to be seen this week. I think this next slate of games, Tuesday to Sunday, is going to decide a lot. I don't think we'll see VR DFA'd. I think it's more likely that we see Hayward DFA'd, and I don't think that's going to happen either.
I think when the MLB actually because they keep pushing back the date when they're gonna cut the roster size, but when they set that and it actually is gonna be set, I think Jed has even hinted that we're gonna see a lot of trades, a lot of things that we don't necessarily usually see this time of year happen. And could we?
It was set today. It was set today, wasn't it? Because that's why
they
allowed stuff.
Right, but they allowed them to keep extra pitchers.
Extra pitchers.
Oh man, I gotta double check this.
Because I think it was initially supposed to go down to 13 and 13, and then they said they didn't have to balance. So some teams kept 15 or something.
But yeah, I just think it's gonna happen eventually where we're gonna have to have that conversation of like we've talked about last week of with Hayward, and it could be with VR, and it's going to kind of play out of how well is Christopher Morrell going to be playing down in AA? How long is he going to be there? And when he does make the move to AAA, how well he does. Does he push? Because he's the only real guy that's currently on the 40-man roster. And I think the Cubs like him enough that they won't let him go. The big one is that David Bodie is on the 40-man roster, and he's going to be probably missed most of this year. And so Yeah.
So the deadline was today to cut down to 26 with no more than 14 pitchers. So the corresponding moves that the Cubs made, replacing Roberts on the 10-day and optioning Locke St. John back down to Iowa. So that gets them to 26.
Right.
But Locke St. John shoved for 1 inning while we were there on Saturday. The next inning, not so much, but
Jake had a great 1-2 combo on Twitter. That was fun to follow while we were at the game. He was like, seeing the future. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I have his autograph on a ball. So that I will give away to somebody that is listening to this and hits me up tomorrow on Twitter. I will give them a Locke St. John ball. So there you go. If you're listening, hit me up on Twitter and I'll send you a Locke St. John autograph.
What's the code word though? Like, because I feel like we should tease a giveaway, but there should be something that they have to tweet to you.
They the list of words.
Locke St. John Kerfuffle.
Malarkey.
There you go.
Malarkey. Okay. That's yeah. You tweet at me Malarkey and boom. Yeah, Locke St. John ball. But I mean, we did salvage one game, and that was a Stroh game that he pitched amazing. So I do have to get on his birthday. So that's great that we got that. Looking ahead, this next week we have 2 games with the White Sox, and then we have another off day. Like this week is weird. It's 2 off days in 1 week. Like it's been like game, and now to have 2 off days in 1 week, it's gonna be weird. But we play the White Sox tomorrow and Wednesday. Smiley versus Kopech, and then Hendricks versus Giolito. Those are gonna be must watch. Anytime you play the crosstown rival, these are big games, and the White Sox have been really struggling, so it might be a good time to play them in Steel 2 before they figure things out and get lights out. They got a good team.
Right.
Their bullpen stacked. The starting pitching is not great. I thought all along that's gonna be the kind of the downfall of the White Sox is they don't have the starting pitching. That
at least we don't have to face Cease this go around though.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we can play well. It's in Wrigley, and then we have the Dodgers coming in town for a 3-game set. But then, like Michael said last week, the schedule continues to get tough the rest of this month. So we'll really see how this this team is and how it goes. I did want to kind of circle back a little bit and talk about, like we've talked about, I mean, the beginning of this season nonstop about this offense. And we really saw this weekend, this offense really struggled to put up runs. They put up 1, 1, and 2. Not going to win you a lot of ball games. And we talked a lot about this new look offense of contact, and not a lot of power, not a lot of slug. That's what's coming back to bite us in the butt. And if you remember 2 episodes ago, Jake had a really good point coming off the Rockies series where we hit ball, put up runs, slugged, a lot of doubles, a lot of home runs, and that, hey, Cubs fans, pump your brakes because we will see what this Cubs offense is in the next couple weeks. I'm not liking what I'm seeing so far. Do you see this changing, or do you see? I mean, right now we do have the guys that we're counting on to be high contact, like Madrigal, not doing it. Do you see a change, or do you see that this team will figure it out and we will kind of average each other out of the kind of 2 big swings that we've had? What do you think, Jake?
I think what this team is going to be is something in the middle of what we saw at Coors and what we saw at AmFam Clam, the Brewers Stadium.
Accurate. Yep.
I think we're still, like, we keep talking about it. Everybody on Twitter, all the Cubs podcasts are talking about it. We're still trying to figure out the players that we have. and Ross is still trying to, figure out their roles. I think we have a few certainties in Hap, Horner, Seiya, Wilson, and frankly, I think we know who Patrick Wisdom is now. I think if I can get a 240 average and an 850 OPS from Wisdom, I'll be really, really happy. Plus his solid defense, I'll be
anything
really
in the eights, for OPS.
So I think it's the in between. And last I checked, Schwindel still got a lot of blue on his StatCast page. Center field is tough right now, and everybody's saying well, wait for Brennan Davis, and Brennan Davis, we want Brennan to be called up in a lineup where he doesn't have to be the guy. We want pressure to be off of him so that he can adapt and adjust to the major leagues. I really don't. I don't know. I think we're going to average we'll average 3 runs a game. I mean, Eric Lauer was lights out on Saturday.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's worth noting. And Adrian Hauser's not bad, but then we scored runs and beat Corbin Burns. So it's that's baseball, right? It's going to happen that way. But it is worth noting that people are keeping an eye on Lauer nationally. People kind of expected a breakout from him, and now they're saying it's probably happening. So that's just great news for Cubs fans, right? Yeah. So I don't know, guys. Kevin, what do you think?
I don't know. I think this is one of those ones where we want to believe we're going to get all of those hits strung together, and you're going to get single, double, single, a walk or whatever. But I think there's just a couple of holes and a couple of folks that we're either still figuring out or maybe Frank isn't quite the tank we like. Or we're still starting Hayward or throwing Hayward in the lineup every now and again and wanting to tear our eyeballs out.
I know it's just one game, but you saw what it could do in that 21 run game with Pirates. We only hit 1 home run that game. So you saw when it's clicking and hitting was contagious. They can put the bat on the ball and they don't need to drive it in the gap every time, slap it down the line. There was plenty of just putting the ball in play and it worked. But there's so much there's a difference between hard hit balls in play and soft ground balls. And that's been the biggest issue of we have Madrigal, who either has been striking out or hitting soft ground balls. And then Nico, who has done better of getting the ball in the air, but he's still rolling over the ball or still pounding the ball on the ground so much. We just need a little bit more loft. We see them getting it just over the shortstop's head and put it in the gap or hit it hard down the line like he has. Then we're cooking. And so like you said, I think we are starting to see who we have in these guys, and that's great. That's what this year is kind of going to be. I don't want to see Frank fall off.
No,
just because he's been a great story. I want to see him kind of find his way into the DH role and get Rivas in there so we can find out who Rivas is long term. Even with Rivas, everybody's super high on him. He doesn't. It's still a very small sample size. We're going to find out who Rivas is. Pitchers are going to figure him out, and eventually we'll know who he is. I think he's going to be a great ball player. I think he's going to be a great off the bench player, or maybe a decent starter filling in until we get that big name first baseman. But he's a good ball player. He's a great ball player. So,
right. And I think we're seeing a little bit of adjustment for Seiya. The league is attacking him a little differently now, and I think that's to be expected. And they even talked on multiple telecasts about how he's not looking at, or he wasn't. I'm not sure if he still is, but he wasn't looking at pitcher profiles and stuff before the game because he wanted to see it first.
He wanted to react,
and that's something that's clearly he's testing himself to then turn around and be able to use the data in an appropriate way for him.
And now we're seeing he just saw Burns for the second time. He's seen some of the bullpen arms for the Brewers more than once, and Pirates bullpen arms too.
Right.
Yep.
So
and both times against
keeps adding up.
And both times versus Burns, he's gotten hits off Burns. I mean, he hit the one down the line yesterday, which won us the game. Like, I mean, that really kind of gave us that one insurance run that we needed. So yeah, that, I mean, we're going to find out who we are in big series against the White Sox and Dodgers coming forward against really good teams. Dodgers offense is stacked. It terrifies me with this Cubs starting staff. Just give me like 4 solid, please. Like, it's going to be tough. Like, getting 4 is going to be really good, I think, in this series, because the Dodgers are going to they're going to put up some runs. I think they're going to feast on some Cubs pitching, starting pitching. So, and they're going to be the Dodgers will be getting Stroman, Steele, and no, they'll be probably getting Leiter.
Oh yeah.
Gosh.
Unless Alec Mills or Miley comes back, but I don't think they're ready yet. So that's probably who we're going to go with the Dodgers series. But to end this episode, we have a great interview with Ben Leeper from the Iowa Cubs. So he's been a reliever down there, pitched lights out last year for the Iowa Cubs. They talked about bringing him up, but actually kind of shut him down towards the end of last season, didn't pitch him as much. This season, last week, he had a clean inning, great inning. And so he's has a fastball sitting like 96. I think it topped out 99 last year, has a really good slider, pitched to a 1.56 ERA, I think, last year. Lights out. But we have an interview with him. So yeah, I'm going to play that and listen to the interview with Ben Leeper. Hi, it's Mitch from the Dingers podcast, and we're here with Ben Leeper from the Iowa Cubs. Welcome to the Dingers podcast, Ben.
Thank you, Mitch, for having me. I'm enjoying being on here.
Yeah, so you're down with the Iowa Cubs. I want to know, what are your like top 3 places to go out to eat down in Des Moines? Because I'm from Iowa. We live in Ames, and so we go down to Des Moines to Iowa Cubs games quite a bit. I want to know what are your spots that you're hitting up.
So I actually just got back from the Breakfast Club probably about 25 minutes ago. I like that place a lot in the mornings. I go there quite a bit. The burger place downtown is like Zombie Burger or something.
Zombie Burger?
Really good burgers down there. I haven't been there this year yet because my car just got up here a couple days ago. So now I kind of have the freedom to go explore some more. And then there's a bakery called Lamai. I'm a big breakfast food person, and so like if I can find eggs anywhere, I'll go find them. So those are probably my top 3.
Nice. Well, you started your kind of professional career going undrafted in the weird 2020 draft where we only had 5 rounds. But before that, you were in Oklahoma State, correct?
That's correct.
And then you signed with the Chicago Cubs. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey through college and then getting signed by the Cubs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, after my 4th year, which would have been my redshirt junior year, there was opportunities that year to be drafted and signed. And the Cubs actually called me that previous year. And we had a few conversations about, being drafted, what would it take? And, it boiled down to, it got to a point that I felt like I was so close to finishing school. And, I felt like I had a little bit more to prove in college up to that point that, I was leaving a lot on the table before I jumped into the professional ranks. And so I wanted to go back and, with no one knew that, what was coming was going to happen. And so like I went into that year, it was probably the best I felt going into a season in a long time. And then boom, we get 3 weeks in and the season's over. The whole spring has changed. And I was kind of in limbo for those months because it's like, I was staying in game shape in case something came up, but we never knew if it was going to be 5 or 10 rounds. And then once it came to 5 rounds, and then they talked about the free agent opportunity. It was, well, now this is a unique opportunity for me because I can now pick kind of where I could see myself, having the most potential. And then Chicago was one of the first teams to reach out, and we had a very open line of communication back and forth. And it was one of those relationships that grew very quickly. And so, leading up to draft time, I knew if that didn't happen, that the Cubs were who I wanted to go with, just because I felt very comfortable with everybody I was talking to and the plan moving forward. So it was kind of a no-brainer after the draft, but it was definitely a unique year.
Now, in your collegiate years, you had a little trouble. You went through 2 Tommy John surgeries and had to bounce back and overcome that. So tell us a little bit, one, about your injuries, and then how you, of a pitcher, has kind of like grown from all that that experience and just the troubling times of going through tough injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a junior in high school, we were in playoffs and I felt the pop in my elbow. You know, as a 16-year-old, there's no way. And that was still early enough when kids that young, that's when you first started seeing kids that young get hurt. And so it was like, wow, like, is this really happening? And so I missed my whole senior year of high school rehabbing. And basically at that point, I was just trying to get ready for the draft out of high school and try to come back and throw a few bullpens leading up to the draft. And I was still having some pain in my elbow. So a year today after my first Tommy John surgery in high school, they actually went back in and moved my ulnar nerve. And so after that, I went to Oklahoma State. I had a very healthy fall. I felt great, you know, started to feel more like myself. The velocity started coming back some. And I was like, you know, like I could see light at the end of the tunnel. And then I was fortunate enough that I made the opening weekend rotation as a freshman at Oklahoma State. And I made 2 starts and I kept feeling the sharp pain in my elbow. And I was like, you know, that there's no way again. And we go and get an MRI and my ligament's starting to calcify and I have internal bleeding in my elbow. And it's like, so I threw over the course of 39 months, I threw 5 2/3 innings. It was a long 3+ years. And so coming back from the second one was a lot more mental than physical. It was, you know, it took the life out of me a lot that I had to wake up every day and force myself to repeat the process that I had just completed. Yeah. But, you know, it's just one of those things that I wasn't ready to give up baseball. Being at that point, I was only 18. It's like I didn't want that to be defined by my baseball career, that I was done by that young of an age.
Yeah, well, we're happy as Cubs fans to have you not give up and keep grinding, because you're coming off a 2021 season where you had a 1.45 ERA in 25 games, 37 Ks. And you went between AA and AAA. Your success was just, it was awesome last year to kind of watch and see you kind of grow. What's kind of been the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself since being a professional baseball player?
You know, there's a lot. I'd say the first is the sense of belonging. That was definitely a few of the things that I had to learn really quick. When I walked into the AA locker room my first day, I was looking around and, you know, you have guys like Ethan Roberts, Wyatt Short, you know, and it's just like, these guys had success at a higher level. And it's like, these are the guys I had to compete with every day. And it was almost one of those things that the first couple of days, it was, do I belong here? It's like, you know, am I ready for this yet? And then you kind of get the first one under your belt and you're like, well, you can kind of start building off of it. And it was the same exact feeling when I got to AAA. It was like, now you have guys that, you know, have big league time and you're facing big league hitters at times. And it's like, now do I really belong here? And it was just that same process. But besides that, just learning how to pitch more, read swings, and in a game plan. You know, I was very, very lucky that, you know, between Jamie Vermillion and Ron Vallone last year, having 2 phenomenal pitching coaches that, you know, that taught me more on, you know, the mental side and how to read things and the pace of the game. And so that right there is something that, you know, I'm still working on, but without their help, I wouldn't be where I am.
So what is your pitch mix that you kind of throw?
So I got a baseball right here. I found one. So I just got the traditional, just the 4-seam grip. And honestly, so I have pretty small hands. The guys give me some crap about it all the time, but, you know, I think it helps at the end of the day. So my 4-seam is actually a little offset since I have small hands. I don't grip it like a traditional 4-seam. I'm a little tilted. So that is kind of what adds to the cut effect, like late on my fastball. And then my slider is basically a quarter turn up and just a 4-seam grip like that where I'm offset. And so I just tuck the thumb on my slider. Basically, I think the same exact thing as my fastball, just rip it down with my middle finger. And then my curveball is just the traditional curveball grip, just straight over the top.
But you mainly are just like fastball slider. You just started introducing a little bit of a curveball, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Mostly fastball slider, and then just trying to find something, change up the pace a little bit since the slider is so close to the fastball.
And we've talked a lot about with other guys, pitchers, about pitch tunneling and getting pitches to work off one another. How are you seeing that like hitters are seeing your fastball and slider working, or you're trying to tunnel them, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a couple different spots in the zone where I'm trying to tunnel it. My fastball plays well up in the zone, but it's hard to sit there and throw sliders up in the zone because you back it up, you hang it, and it's going to be hit around the yard. And so learning to throw the fastball high and glove side and then throw the slider off of it, even if it's a little bit lower, has been really successful. And then same with down and away, and then off of that. To a lefty, what I'll try to do is start the fastball mid up and then start the slider basically middle in about belt high, so it looks like it's coming in, and then kind of finishes right into that, that dead zone that everyone talks about.
Yep.
Those are basically it. Otherwise than that, I'm just trying to read the swings and figure out if they're hunting the fastball or if they're a little more protective and waiting on the slider.
Yeah, and you're just coming off a really good outing, a clean inning, which I'm sure you're really excited about and happy to kind of see a little bit some of the success this year early on.
Absolutely, yeah. So this year's definitely been a little bit of an adjustment. That the first few outings I haven't really thrown like myself per se, and so that's something that has allowed me to step back and actually learn a lot more about myself as a pitcher because the struggles are what going to define how I come back from that. It's going to define how I am as a pitcher. And so just going back and watching film and learning that the mistakes that I've made up to this point this year are very correctable and easy fixes. Is that's very promising to me. That the slider's not working how it's supposed to in certain counts, or I'm throwing it in the wrong spot and it's getting hit. That's something that it's not a hard fix that I can basically just change my sights and get back on the right page. And like you said, having an outing like that this past week was really a good thing, and it allowed me to kind of get back on the right page and feel like this is what I need to do to be successful.
I mean, think about that. Like, that's great to hear. Like, some of our younger listeners that are like high school age that are working, that like they get so mentally weak where one bag outing kind of throws their whole season, or like they let that kind of snowball effect and get worse and worse. And so like you can find a positive and still see where you're still working on getting, especially with this year with a short spring training, and it's still a small sample size. So I was happy to see that you had a really good outing this last week.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, if any advice for them, it's one outing. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. You get to throw again. Like as much as it's not fun in the moment, that there's always a chance to go back out there and redeem yourself the next time.
Now, Cubs fans are super excited about all the young pitching that we have in the minor leagues, and you're living it. You're right there rubbing shoulders next to all these guys. Who are some of the guys that like over the course of the last 2 years or even spring training that you're like, man, these guys are good? Who are some
absolutely.
Of the sticking out to you?
Playing with Ethan, and he's already gotten the opportunity to go up there. I love him to death, and so that was actually an eye opener. When I got to Tennessee and I had to play catch with him, and he hit me in the ankle with like a curveball, like the third like flat ground pitch he threw, and in my head I was like, this is what I have to compete with. I was like, oh my gosh, but so Kane Eckert, phenomenal pitcher. He's actually my roommate, so him and I a little competitive juices going, but it's all friendly stuff. Eric Ullman as well. We have a bunch of really good pitchers at this level. But yeah, I'm excited for the future because I think there's multiple guys who are going to be able to impact the future of the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah. Going back, like what's from having so much success last season, what was your kind of approach this off season, and what was your kind of your focus? Or was it like, nope, just kind of do the same thing and hopefully get the same results? What was your kind of your approach going into the off season?
It was definitely one to build off of that. I spent a lot of time going back and reflecting on, well, what made me successful and why. And going into this year, I knew that, last year there was a lot of unknowns. A lot of these teams didn't really know who I was. Scouting reports were very limited because it was so few innings. And, this year they have a better plan. And just learning how to pitch based off of that, them knowing that this is what I'm going to do and still being successful. And then I tried to just smooth out my delivery a little bit. I felt like I was getting a little rushed at the end of last year, that I was speeding up a little bit more than I liked. And so this whole offseason, I was just focused on just smooth throwing and basically trying to feel how hard can I throw the slowest, if that makes sense. Is like, how smooth can I be while throwing hard?
Okay. Who's a major league batter that you are looking forward to facing?
What's that? Who I look forward to facing?
Yeah, in the majors. Who's one batter you're like, I want to see that guy in the box. I want to attack him.
I mean, I grew up and, Albert Pujols was a guy I always wanted to face. But now, I mean, I feel like I want to face Juan Soto. I feel like that is the toughest out when it comes to an approach in baseball. That is one of the toughest hitters to not only get out but strike out. And so I feel like facing him would be a very fun at bat, because you could definitely size up how well your stuff plays to the best hitters in the world just by facing him.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to take any more of your time. Thanks so much for jumping on and joining us. Good luck on the rest of the season, and go get them in St. Paul. That's where you're headed up next, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Got to embrace the cold again.
Yeah. This fall, it's been tough.
So
it's been
a cold few weeks.
Yep. So, well, good luck, and go get them in St. Paul.
Awesome. Mitch, thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Ben Leeper of the Iowa Cubs. Hopefully we see him up with the Chicago Cubs this year. I'm guessing that's kind of where people are projecting him, that this year he's going to make the jump to the Chicago Cubs. If there's an injury or anything that happens, you talked about Ethan Roberts. I think Ethan Roberts just got sent down. So those two we'll be able to watch down in Des Moines here soon. Kevin, but have you been down when Ben has actually got in to pitch?
I don't think so. I don't think I actually have seen him pitch yet.
I think I was at a game last year. I think I went down with my son where he got in, and I mean, he's lights out. He throws the ball hard. Slider, plays well off his fastball. Last year he started throwing a little bit more of a curveball, just because like he said, he needed a little bit of a change of pace pitch. But yeah, he's got lights out stuff, and he's a little bit different. He has only been a reliever.
Right.
I think
he's developed like solely for that purpose.
Yeah. And I think even in college, that's all he did was just relief pitch. And so usually pitchers, like they focus on, they're usually starters, and they're failed starters, kind of the t-shirt that they all made last year. And they end up becoming bullpen guys, where he's just been a relief guy, and he's adopted that role, got lights out stuff to be a back end of the bullpen type piece. So yeah, we wish nothing but success for Ben, and we're gonna be following him and his career closely.
Right. He seems like a great dude. I'm really excited to see him pitch up in, the blues and the pinstripes. Be great to see him. I think it's hilarious and awesome that he had a baseball right there.
Yeah. Well, I asked him, I texted him like, hey, do you have a baseball? Like 10 minutes before the interview. He's like, I'll see if I can find one. Because I wanted to ask him a little bit about how he throws his pitches. Because like he said, he has small hands. I have small hands too. So like, I want to know how he throws his fastball, how he cuts it, and how he throws a slider. I mean, he works him off kind of the same thing, but yeah, just always interesting to see how guys throw different pitches.
Right. And everybody holds the ball in a different way. So to kind of see that, and to see him, like, you can describe in words what that looks like, but if you can see the video, he's actually holding the ball to the camera and showing like the angle he's holding it and everything like that. It's pretty cool.
Yep. Well, that does it for this episode of the Dingers podcast. Again, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Dinger Cubs. Also join our Facebook group. Search Dingers, the Chicago Cubs podcast. And like and subscribe on all the podcasting places, Apple, Spotify. Smash subscribe and leave us a review. We want to hear from you. We want to hear how we can improve. We want to hear from you. So just give us a review. That'd be great. But that does it for episode 78 of the Dingers podcast.
Yep. Don't forget to go get your TG Brews, Toppling Goliath.